What is up, guys? Welcome back to my reaction channel. It's your boy Chris, and today we're gonna continue where we left off. This is the French Revolution Part 2 by Oversimplified. Y'all know how it is, guys. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, hit the subscribe button now. Make sure to hit the bell button for post notifications. If you have any suggestions, comment down below. That being said, let's get into the intro. This part
King
2,
Louis
guys.
and his family were now in the Tuileries Palace in Paris, where for the next couple of years, he watched as the revolutionary government began to strip away his power. And fearing for his safety, he had to stay on their good side. Hey, look who it is. It's my favorite revolutionaries. Yep,
He needs
I'm your
to
number one
kiss their
fan.
ass,
What
you know
can
what
I
I'm
do for you?
saying?
Hey, King Louis. So we've made a few decisions. First, all of your friends in the nobility are going to have to pay taxes the same as everyone else.
Yeah.
Great idea. I love it. And as a side note, the tax money can no longer pay for all your lavish parties. Great. I hate those parties.
Great.
They're so awkward. And also, we're taking away your Porsche. Oh, come on! I mean, yay. The king continually found demand after demand being made of him to prove his support for the revolution. On one occasion, a mob would invade the palace and demand he wear the revolutionary bonnet. This is the face of a man who is definitely pretending he wants to wear that bonnet.
That
now,
for real,
I
though?
want to mention
What
that one
the fuck?
thing King Louis had a problem with was people constantly raiding his palace. But one thing he didn't have a problem with was raiding noobs on this video's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends.
Guys,
Raid Shadow
this
Legends
is
is a
sad,
brand
you know
new
what I'm
collection
saying?
RPG
Skip this
game
one if
with
you want.
amazing 3D
I'm gonna watch
graphics,
it.
an awesome
Support
storyline,
the
and
channel,
giant
you know
boss
what I'm
fights, all free to play on your phone. There's over 400 champions for you to collect and customize, and crazy battles and events that will get you hooked immediately. You can find me in the game under the nickname Oversimplified, and if you're quick enough and cool enough, you can join my clan. Go to the video description, click on the special links, and you will instantly get 50,000 silver and a free epic champion as part of the new player program,
you know what I'm saying?
to start your
Get
journey.
back to it. Let's
Good
go.
luck, and I'll see you there. Now, where was I? Oh yeah. Seeing the situation rapidly turning against him, the king decided it might be a good idea to leave France and mount a campaign to retake his country from abroad. Luckily for him, he was married to an Austrian.
Why do they always
so on the
do
night
that
of
shit?
June
You know what
20th,
I'm saying? Why do they
1791,
always...
the king and his family disguised themselves as servants and attempted to
not
flee
gonna
to
work,
the Austrian
though, like...
Netherlands. The royal
Yeah.
carriage made a stop
I
in the
googled
town
it,
of
though.
Varennes, and the postmaster there
They
was
got
like,
caught.
"Hey guys, what's up? Where are you off to? We are but a collection of inconspicuous servants heading for the border for no particular reason at all."
Huh.
Say, you, the fat one, you look kind of familiar. Aren't you the king? Nope. Let me see your passport. It says here you're King Louis the 16th. Nope.
That was a stupid
not me.
move, you know. You should have known he would
Take him
get
away, boys.
caught.
The king was promptly returned to Paris, but now the jig was up. His lack
Yeah,
of support for
the
the
people
revolution
was not
was
gonna be
clear
happy
to
about
all,
it.
and many considered him a straight-up traitor who tried to abandon his people. As a result, the new constitution of 1791 completely reduced his powers to that of a simple figurehead, a constitutional monarch. However, radicals, such as those in the Jacobin Club, were outraged that the king wasn't to be removed entirely. So a month later, these radicals staged a protest on the Champ de Mars, calling for the king's removal. The government of Paris feared an insurrection was mounting, and they sent the military to disperse the crowd. The confrontation escalated and resulted in the Revolutionary National Guard
Getting
firing
shot.
on a crowd of revolutionaries. It was a massacre. The incident exposed a deep
Boss,
division.
why do I see a lot of similarities between British and American? You know what I'm saying? When the British send their own soldiers to America, you know what I'm saying? When they dump the fucking tea, the Americans protest and they all got shot. 2 people died. You know what I'm saying? So I see a lot of similarities between this one. What the fuck?
Within the Brotherhood of the Revolution. On one side, the moderates who wanted to keep the king as a figurehead. On the other, radicals who wanted to see the king deposed and heads roll. In the wake of the massacre, these radicals received a wave of support. And speaking of rolling heads, one form of equality the revolution
They love
introduced was
rolling heads,
equality
you know what I'm
in
saying? They
execution.
love it
This
so
meant
much.
no more torturous drawing and quartering, no more inhumane hanging. They wanted all criminals, regardless of economic status, to receive the same penalty, a quick and painless one. Luckily, a man by the name of Dr. Joseph Guillotine had an idea. A heavy blade that falls like thunder. The head flies off, blood spurts, and the man is no more. The guillotine, otherwise known as the national razor. The guillotine made its debut in 1791 as the new form of execution. The writings of Marat and others continued to call for the execution of anyone suspected of working against the revolution. For him, this included some members of the clergy and nobility who had previously benefited from the cruel system of inequality that existed before the revolution. In many parts of the countryside, local lords had found themselves become a target. Sire, the peasants, they're revolting. Oh, come on, that's a bit harsh. Sure, they smell a bit, but I wouldn't say they're revolting. Oh, yes, I see what you mean. Increasingly, these French aristocrats began fleeing France to find solitude in other parts of Europe. And once again, fear began to take hold. The privileged classes of these foreign nations didn't like what they were seeing because they feared revolutionary ideas may spread to their own lands. The National Assembly, actually now the Legislative Assembly, feared that these nations may decide to attack. Then why don't we attack them first? No, you idiots, we are definitely not ready for war yet.
Bro,
Did somebody say something? France declared war on Austria in April 1792 and immediately got pummeled. It also didn't help that Austria's ally, Prussia, joined in the fighting. The Prussian Duke of Brunswick posted a letter warning the revolutionaries that if anything happened to the king, he would burn Paris to the ground. The Duke's letter proved to be a massive success in inspiring the people of Paris to do the exact opposite of what he intended. They were enraged by the threat, and on the 10th of August 1792, the tension in the city exploded, and a mob stormed the king's palace. Fighting broke out between the revolutionaries and the king's Swiss guard, with casualties in the hundreds. King Louis fled and took refuge in the chamber of the Legislative Assembly, where Robespierre and his radical Jacobins were gaining ever more power. Given the
at this point, it's like a domino effect, you know what I'm saying? It's going down over and over. This is so bad, bro, because of just fucking idiots, you know what I'm saying? Just one person, you know, just one person. Because of one person's action, it go down like dominoes effect. What the fuck?
Developing situation, the chamber decided to hold a vote, and in what some considered to be a second revolution, it was decided to suspend the monarchy entirely. King Louis XVI was now just plain old Louis, and he was sent to a prison cell where an eye could be kept on him. A month later, the newly established National Convention officially declared the French Republic, and society underwent a massive change. Enlightened ideas of democracy and equality were being implemented, but very quickly, these ideas seemed to become secondary
Napoleon
to
being mentioned,
paranoia, and a thirst for blood. The new republic began working to violently remove any semblance of the old royalist regime. The church became a prime target. Priests who refused to take an oath to the revolution were deported or arrested. A new state-sponsored atheistic religion named the Cult of Reason was created as a replacement for the Catholic Church. Notre Dame, along with many other churches, had their religious treasures destroyed and were converted to temples of reason. Even the Christian calendar didn't survive, as a brand new revolutionary
you can just remove the church, but don't destroy the artifacts, you know what I'm saying? It's a piece of history.
What's wrong with you? You forgot. Forgot what? Everything. This entire year. My birthday was on the 3rd of Germinal, our anniversary was the 12th of Thermidor, and you promised that in Frimaire, we'd go on a romantic weekend trip to Venice. No, I said we'd do that in December. December hasn't been a thing for years. The government of Paris, now under the control of the radical sans-culottes, began rounding up suspected enemies of the revolution and sending them to prison in the thousands. Naturally, a large number of those arrested were members of the clergy and aristocracy. As France's foreign enemies continued to close in, panic spread. Georges Danton made impassioned calls for men to defend the Republic, and tens of thousands of troops left Paris for
this is what happens when
However, in their absence,
fear, you
Paris
know what I'm
was left
saying,
to its own
heightened
devices.
up.
As enemy troops arrived
They
in
can do
Verdun,
whatever the
the
fuck
people
they
of
want
Paris
and they
feared that their
think
crowded prisons
it's
were becoming
justified.
a breeding ground for counter-revolutionary conspiracy. What would happen if the Prussians reached Paris and freed the aristocrats? Marat believed he knew what would happen. The
A simple
aristocrats would
Google
enact their
will let
vengeance
you know what
on
the
the
fuck
people.
happened.
Fearing those they
that
had
day.
already imprisoned, mobs descended on Paris's prisons. They broke in, and during the brutal September massacres, aristocrats, priests, and others were tried and executed on the spot. Even women and children weren't spared. With over 1,600 victims, word of the massacre spread across Europe. One British newspaper wondered, are these the rights of man? Is this the liberty of human nature? But there was still one man in particular that Robespierre and his radicals really wanted to see executed. Austria and Prussia
Radicals,
pledged
bro.
that after they defeated France,
Yes.
they'd return King Louis to the throne. Well, checkmate Austria and Prussia, because you can't return a man to the throne if he's already dead. Citizen Louis Capet was put on trial for treason. Obviously, he was found guilty, but his punishment
that
was
makes
lesser.
sense, but
Many moderates wanted to simply deport him, but Robespierre insisted the revolution could only live if the king was dead. A vote was held, and by just one vote, Louis was
bro,
sentenced to
that
the
dude
guillotine.
is not right
If
in
you
the
don't
head,
mind,
just
I'd
like
like to
John
say a few
Marat, you
words
know what I'm
first.
saying? What the fuck?
Gentlemen, I am innocent of everything of which I am accused. Wait, you're too loud. They can't hear me. Hang on, I haven't finished yet. Wait, dude! Uncool. In her prison cell, Marie Antoinette heard the guns fired, signaling her husband's death. Before long, she would meet the same
Well,
fate.
They
Back
had
in the
it
warfare,
coming, you know what I'm
France defied
saying?
all
They had it
expectations
coming.
and actually managed to push the enemy back.
He's an
But then
idiot.
more countries joined the coalition against France, and it
But
all
the
went to pot
radicals,
again.
bro,
What do we do? Conscript the masses.
They're allowed
the
to do
National
whatever the
Convention
fuck they want.
introduced a conscription
Like
law,
this
with each
one.
regional
It's
department
gonna be
having
bad.
to meet a certain quota of men for the army. However, not everyone was happy with this new law. You see, while Paris was definitely a hotbed for radical revolutionary fervor, some of the regions outside of Paris weren't quite so keen on the revolution.
Radical.
Some were largely still conservative, still supported the church, and just didn't suffer from that much inequality before the revolution. So as the revolution turned increasingly violent and anti-Christian, many were outraged. Now, they were being conscripted to fight for the new republic they hated. That was the last straw. Counter-revolutionary uprisings erupted in a number of regions across France. Some would last for years, such as in the northwest, where a large-scale uprising was led by the Owls. Why were they called the Owls? Because their leader was named Jean
Does it
Owl.
last
Why
like
was he called John Owl? Possibly because he could do a really
Civil
good
War?
impression of an owl.
Does it turn
Really?
into Civil War
That's
or
what we're going
something?
with? Owls?
I mean,
just because this guy
It
can
was
do
not
an impression of
explained
one?
in the
Hit him
Napoleonic
with
War,
it, John.
so...
Hoot, hoot. Yeah, okay, that's pretty good. The Chouannerie uprising lasted all the way until 1800. In the summer of 1793,
Bro.
the southern city of Toulon invited the British Navy over for some tea and crumpets. And then they asked if they'd possibly like to stay and occupy the city. Being an important naval base, this was a heavy blow to the Republic, who sent a relatively
That's
unknown
bad.
young captain
Yeah.
by the name of Napoleon Bonaparte to help stage the siege of the city. Toulon was recaptured by France in the winter.
Oh, there is the man, the myth, the legend, Napoleon Bonaparte, bro. There he is.
And for his service, Napoleon was promoted to the rank of Brigadier General. The most infamous counter-revolution, however, occurred in the Vendée region. Throughout 1793, revolutionary forces clashed with the region's Catholic and Royal Army. The Republic defeated the counter-revolution through cruel pacification. In particular, General Jean-Baptiste Carrier committed brutal atrocities. In one instance, he had thousands of civilians, priests, women, and children tied to ships, which were then sunk. Carrier would later be found guilty of war crimes
Bro, you
and
guys
executed.
have
Back in
serious
Paris, the
problems
government
with
was still
execution. What
dominated
the
by
fuck?
moderates. With the war going badly, revolts in the provinces, and the economy getting worse, it seemed the government just wasn't doing a very good job. Radicals' fear for the
Yeah,
safety
they
of
post
the
them all.
revolution intensified, and Marat even began calling for
This
the
dude,
moderates
bro.
in the government to be executed. In return, the moderates called for the arrest of Marat. This led to a chain of events with the two sides in heated conflict. Robespierre declared the Jacobins to be an insurrection and called on the people to arm themselves. It all ended on the 31st of May,
shit.
1793, with the National Convention
It's
surrounded
going
by
crazy
radicals
right now.
sans-culottes and 29 moderate Girondin politicians arrested. From this moment on, the moderates ceased to be a political force. Robespierre and his radicals would be in almost total control
Oh, that's
of the
bad.
government. And this brings
That's
us
bad.
to the story of a woman named Charlotte Corday. Charlotte lived in the northwest city of Caen, and like many in the area, was horrified at the rapid radicalization and increasing
F-Go
violence
fans
of the
right there.
revolution.
You know
And the
this
man she
woman,
blamed
you know what
more
I'm
than
saying?
anyone was Jean-Paul Marat. She wanted to bring peace back to France, and so she did something drastic. She traveled to Paris and told Marat she had a list of enemies for him to publish in his paper. Marat eagerly invited her in for a meeting. So where's that list of enemies you promised me? Here it is. Wait a minute. This isn't a list of enemies. It just says, yippee-ki-yay, mother... And just like that, Marat was no more. Charlotte was quickly
Bro.
arrested and sent to the guillotine. Her dream of restoring peace,
That's
however,
bad too,
died
you know,
with her.
because
Marat became a
it's
martyr.
gonna be martyr.
In temples of reason, symbols
Yeah,
of the dead
exactly.
Marat became the new crucifix. In death, he became
Fucking
an even
hell.
more powerful inspiration for the extreme levels of violence that were about to rip throughout the new republic. And that's right, here comes the Reign of Terror. If you thought this revolution already sounds pretty violent, well, you ain't seen nothing yet, son. The radicals were now in control, and
France,
they
bro,
believed not only was
France,
France surrounded by
France.
foreign enemies,
You
but
guys
that
love
within the masses, there were
the
also plenty of
executions, bro.
internal ones too. Individuals not loyal to the revolution, conspiring to bring about its downfall. Robespierre and the rest of the radical faction were having none of it. A new committee of public safety was established with 12 members. Its purpose
Yo,
was to
this
protect
dude
the
gotta
French
go.
Republic from its enemies, and it basically became a 12-man dictatorship with Robespierre as its leading voice.
Oh,
The
shit.
Revolutionary Tribunal was also reinstated, a special court created to streamline the process of trying suspected enemies and handing out their death sentences. With these two new institutions, Robespierre wanted to scare France's enemies straight. In September 1793, it was announced that terror would be the order of the day. In other words, fear
Fucking hell,
had become
this dude,
official
bro.
government policy. And from then onwards, we enter into the period known as the Reign of Terror. Spies and secret police were everywhere, and watched the people closely. France's public had to be extremely careful what they said and how they behaved. Obviously, criticizing this new system or the government would quickly have you sent
you
off
guys
to the
asking
guillotine.
for it, you know
But
what I'm
that's
saying?
not all.
You
Even
guys
the most
asking for
minor
it. You
offense
elected
could
those
have you
people.
tried before the
You
Revolutionary
let them
Tribunal.
have too
Hello,
much power
Citizen
in their
Martin.
hands
Hello,
without
Monsieur
checking
Dubois.
it.
Monsieur? Did I just hear you say monsieur? That's the old style of address, my friend. To the guillotine! You know what? I didn't like him,
Oh,
but I
shit.
did feel kind of bad for the king and his family. Oof, expressing sympathy for the royal family, are we? To the guillotine! 12 sous for a loaf of bread? That's way overpriced. To the guillotine! Man, this bread line is taking forever. To the guillotine! And you look like you're thinking anti-revolutionary thoughts. To the
Bro,
guillotine.
what the fuck?
Next, we're sending way too many people to the guillotine. To the guillotine! Chop, 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 chop. It was insane. All across France, about
Oh,
40,000
shit.
people were killed for suspected crimes against liberty. Let's say your neighbor won't stop mowing the lawn at 7 in the morning. Well, then all
Boss,
you gotta
it's not even proven though. They were just suspected. 40,000 people was executed for suspected. Bro, what the fuck?
do is tell the
That
government
guy
they've
gotta
been talking
go.
smack about the revolution, and there's a
Shit.
good chance they'll end up in front of the Revolutionary Tribunal. Maybe they'll even be executed, taking a metaphorical load off your shoulders and a literal one off theirs. The most prominent victim of the Reign of Terror was a certain Marie Antoinette, who was finally tried and found guilty of treason in 1793. She expected she'd be brought to the
Oof.
guillotine in a royal carriage, fit for a queen. All the Republic could provide for her, however, was a wooden tumbril. At 37 years old, the most hated woman in French history met her end on the 16th of October, 1793.
Well, I mean, it's hard to
Robespierre
be.
had saved the revolution
feel sorry
through
for her.
terror. Internal dissent was being suppressed. The food situation
But
was
the
no longer
innocent
quite as
people
bad.
that got
Even the French
killed
military
because
had got
of
its
being
act together
suspected
again
only,
and
you know what I'm
pummeled the
saying?
Allies at the Battle of
That's
Fleurus.
bad.
For Danton and his followers, the time was right to try to normalize the French Republic. Hey, Robespierre, so we were thinking
Exactly.
that since things are finally going better, maybe we should rein in the terror. And while we're on it, we could possibly start taking it easier on the church, and also try to end this costly war. Oh, crap. As time went on, Robespierre seemed
Well,
to go,
you
for
can't-
lack of a better term, a bit mental. He was hell-bent on creating what he called a republic of virtue, and for him, this meant amping up the bloodshed
Republic
even
of
more.
virtue
Throughout the
made
spring and
out of
summer
heads.
1794, executions reached an unprecedented level during a period known
Stupid
as
as hell.
the Great Terror. Even those closest to him found their way to the guillotine if they dared oppose his ideas and actions, and he began alienating himself from the rest of the convention. He created a new deistic religion called the Cult of the Supreme
Somebody
Being,
gotta put
along
him-
with the new
put him
annual
away.
Festival of the Supreme Being.
He gotta
And
go.
I think Robespierre is really starting to
He's
lose it.
becoming
He thinks he's a god or
the
something.
range.
Nonsense. Sure, he's gone a little extreme, but he doesn't think he's a god.
A little
My children,
extreme.
bathe your immortal souls in the virtue of my republic. Okay, yeah, he's completely lost it. Robespierre's ultimate mistake, however, came on July 26th, when he made a speech to the National Convention, in which he said this: "I have in my hand a brand new list of enemies to be sent to the guillotine, and many of you are on this list, but I'm not going to tell you who yet." What do you think of
Okay,
that?
okay.
I think we should send Robespierre to the guillotine first. All in favor?
Exactly.
No. 2 days later, Robespierre became the final victim of the monstrous
Pause.
terror and paranoia,
Pause. He created something, and now he's gonna die on something that he created. You know what I'm saying? You get my point, right? Like, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. You live by the blade, you die by the blade. He deserves it. You know, it's hard to feel sorry for him.
he had created.
He deserved it.
Many historical accounts of the revolution end here with the death of Robespierre and his terror. But the
I don't know why,
revolution
but
officially continued for another 5
put
years
smile on my
until
face, you know what I'm
1799.
saying?
So what happened between now and then? Well, after the fall of Robespierre, a more moderate political group called the Thermidorians took control of the convention. They wanted to restore stability to the
Okay.
government. Now, Robespierre's allies and other radicals who had fueled the terror themselves became the target of political suppression. Bourgeois street fighters took on the radical sans-culottes in the streets
Ironic.
during a period named the White Terror. In 1795, the Thermidorians drafted a new constitution and created a government called the Directory with the purpose of preventing power from being able to fall into the hands of a single individual again. As this new government was being established, royalists who wanted to bring the monarchy back to France saw this moment as an opportunity to strike. They staged an insurrection in Paris and
Bro,
battled
they
with the
never
National Guard
learn a
in the streets.
lesson.
Luckily, one Napoleon Bonaparte happened to be in Paris at the time, and he took control of the situation, firing on the crowd and putting down the insurrection. From this moment
What?
on, the people of Paris would never again be able to stage
Yo,
a
he
popular
fired on the
uprising
crowd
and lost
too?
their control
The hell?
over the revolution. For his actions, Napoleon became a general and was sent to take control of the French armies in Italy. The new Directory remained a fairly ineffective government for the remainder of the revolution. It was plagued with corruption and struggled to keep the economy afloat, and as a result, wasn't very popular.
Just when you
For the
know,
people
you
of
thought
France,
it was
with
gonna
the
get
strict
good,
social customs
it's
of
gonna
both
get so
royalist
bad
France
again.
and the terror gone, they
Like,
didn't really know what to do with
bro,
themselves. Men no longer removed their hats
France
when
is
talking
getting
to women.
fucked
Different classes
over and
began
over again by some
intermingling,
people.
and a publication began circulating that looked a lot like a modern dating app. It was social anarchy. Outside of France, the war continued. In 1795, France took the Netherlands, where they set up a puppet state. Then they negotiated both Prussia and Spain out of the war. The British attempted to land French royalists in the west to reinforce rebellion, but that plan failed. In 1796, the French planned a three-pronged attack with the aim of marching on Vienna and knocking Austria out of the war. The two northern armies were defeated and forced to retreat. However, Napoleon in the south, with
Napoleon,
groundbreaking
bro.
military strategy, won battle after
Yeah.
battle after battle. He pushed the Austrians out of Italy and began closing in on Vienna. The Austrians freaked out, and Napoleon oversaw the signing of a peace
He's
treaty.
fucking
He had
beast,
almost
bro.
single-handedly knocked Austria
He's a
out of
legend.
the war. And by the way,
You
he was
know?
only 28, so maybe it's about time you moved out of your mom's basement. Napoleon became a famed hero among the French people, but his aspirations were still higher. He briefly went off to Egypt and discovered a bunch of gnarly Egyptian stuff, but then the British destroyed his fleet and trapped his forces. Say, Napoleon, sir, you're not going to
Then
leave us
he-
here stuck in Egypt and return
he
to
abandoned
France,
his
are
men.
you? Nonsense, my
Go
boy.
back.
I would never dream of abandoning my loyal soldiers. Wow, what's that over there? On his
Bro.
return to Paris, Napoleon found himself to be extremely
Bro,
popular,
Napoleon.
and the government extremely
He
unpopular,
trolled
and he
him too
started
much.
getting some power-hungry ideas. Conveniently, a politician
Oh,
named
shit.
Emmanuel Joseph Sieyès approached Napoleon and said, "Hey man, since you're so popular, do you want to help me stage a coup?" "Great idea. Let's stage a coup, and then I'll coup you." What? Napoleon, with the help of his politician brother, entered the government chamber, possibly got punched in the face, and finally his troops intimidated the council to dissolve the government and create a new constitution that basically made Napoleon a dictator. So there you have it, the
Yeah.
French Revolution, born with the great promise of liberty and equality. The common people dared challenge an oppressive system that had existed for centuries.
The
But before they
revolution,
knew
bro,
they found
it
liberty
lost,
sidelined by
it
terror,
lost
equality
its
that
meaning, you know what I'm
possibly didn't
saying,
quite hit
when
the
they
mark,
started
and
cutting
an
people's
absolute
head
monarchy replaced by
just
an
because
absolute
of
dictator.
suspicion.
Napoleon began stabilizing French society. He restored the Catholic Church and got rid of that crazy calendar, among other
Okay.
things. But he remained ever ambitious. He was France's first consul, but he slept soundly at night dreaming of being something even bigger. Napoleon's expansionist aspirations, combined with the ongoing conflict in Europe, would eventually lead the continent into a huge conflict known today as
The Napoleonic War. Yo guys, that is the French Revolution Part 2 by Oversimplified. Bro, it's great to learn history, you know, especially France history, because when I started this video, I absolutely no fucking idea about French history and all that, so yeah. Anyway, it still boggles me. 40,000 people died in the entire France. during that time, just because they were suspicious of having anti-revolutionary thoughts, you know what I'm saying? They were suspicious. They were not even proven real, you know what I'm saying? This is what happens when you put paranoid people in power, you know? This is what happens when you put radicals and then left them unchecked. You know, they no one to check on their powers. It's what happens. I don't see how they didn't see this coming. You know what I'm saying? Because at the early stage of revolution, Robespierre is already showing signs of being mentally deranged. You know what I'm saying? He's like, yeah, kill the dude, kill the dude. Especially John Paul Marat, he is showing signs of this. You know, he's like, yeah, kill nobility, kill them all. Yeah, they're bad news. He's fueling the fire. While I don't agree on his side, I also don't agree with Charlotte Corday killing him, you know, because he only martyrized him. You know, martyr. He only made him martyr. And that's a bad news, because a lot of people is gonna look up to that dude. And it's only going to breed more and more radicals. So yeah. Anyways, on the thoughts though, like, how much work Napoleon did after that shit, you know? That's what I don't learn from Napoleonic War, because in Napoleonic War it started as Napoleon going on a conquest. You know, I didn't see Napoleon stabilizing the entire fucking thing, because when he got in power, a lot of shit happens. You know, it's still unstable, France. So yeah. Anyways, that's it, guys. If you wanna see more of my, if you wanna see the Napoleonic War video, you can look it up in my history playlist. It's in there, you know, it's complete. Anyways, like the video, guys, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell button for post notifications. If you have any suggestions, comment down below.